Welcome back to the Imani Forrester channel. As you know, Imani Forrester is the author of 30 Reasons Why Men Deserve Nothing, which you can find in the description box below. Before we get into those videos, quick reminder, if you're looking to build a passive stream of income in 2025, especially through writing books, creating content, and growing an online community of like-minded people, make sure that you check out the program that Imani and I put together. Together, we have over a decade of experience self-publishing books, and our self-publishing course is now available at over 50% off with early bird pricing, and it comes with exclusive bonuses. So if you've ever dreamed of earning royalties from your writing and passion and creating an online business, this course is a no-brainer. We're teaching you how to market your books effectively, combine your expertise, passion, and market research so that your books actually sell. Use your books to create a loyal, engaged community around the things that you care about, and we're still adding new modules as we go. Also, timing matters. Q4 is when most businesses, big and small, make the bulk of their income. So if you want to make a new income stream before the year's out, now is a really great time to get in. Hey all, I'm Shanice, and today we need to talk about something truly unhinged. So, apparently women not dating short males is now being framed as menocide. Men on Twitter are out here comparing not getting effed to a G-side. But let's be honest, it's not about height. It's never been about height. The male loneliness crisis happening right now is hitting men of all sizes. So it's not because women are shallow. It's because women are effing tired. Okay, women are tired of being the therapist, the maid, the mom, the emotional support animal, and the villain all in one. And more women are choosing peace, choosing not to raise a male in order to love him. And some males can't handle that. So they're cooking up conspiracy theories all over X where women refusing to date them becomes some kind of hate crime. Now, I came across this Reddit post from the R2X chromosome subreddit that sums it up entirely, and I'm going to read it for y'all. So let's get into it and read some comments. So Old Bridge writes, saw a thread on Twitter about how women are committing G-side against males by only sleeping with 6-foot-tall guys, and so males are allowed to commit G-side against women and their rights to defend themselves. And it was being liked and well received in the comments. What is going on with this world? So there's been some talk about the way women are treated in the Middle East lately, but don't forget that the West can be just as cruel and has been regressing lately. ABO writes employment rates in many places, and the discourse is becoming worse and worse, especially around dating, which feels like this great monster bubbling underneath the surface until a populist, far-right politician comes along and weaponizes it as a major issue across all of Europe and North America. Not only are these males mad because women are free to choose and are choosing ourselves, they're mad that women are no longer willing to hand over our bodies for their use, whether it's for SMECs, for children, or for male ego repair. And the logic they're operating under is that if you won't let us F you and reproduce our bloodlines through you, you're committing G-side. And so now we get to unalive you in return. Even though everywhere else in the natural world, sexual selection is decided by the female of the species and not the males. But what's horrifying about this is that it's not a new mindset, it's ancient. Males have always used violence to control women ever since we started moving away from matriarchal societies to patriarchal ones. They've used violence to subjugate women, to punish us for not being compliant. And this kind of rhetoric, this you're denying us what's rightfully ours, is just a modern spin on a very, very old script. You can see how fast the entitlement jumps from you owe us SMECs to you deserve to be unalived. They see women as property. And if you withhold what they think that they own, your body, your reproduction, your submission, then that's theft. That's robbery. In their minds, unaliving you would be restoration. It would be setting the natural order right again. That's how deep this entitlement runs, and this is the kind of dangerous delusion that we're living among. So let's get into some of these comments. So Cormac writes, newsflash, not effing me is G-side. Old Bridge writes, their argument is that since 10% of American males or something are over 6 feet tall, women mostly only sleeping with them is tantamount to a silent G-side that wipes out the vast majority of males from the gene pool. This is crazy. So the men in that Twitter post are claiming that only 10% of males are 6 feet or taller. And because women are apparently only choosing the males who are from that 10%, there's some kind of silent G-side happening against the other 90%. And first of all, what pool are they even pulling from? What population are they talking about? Because the actual data puts the number closer to about 14.5 in the US, but let's say it's 10%. Even then, the idea that all women are only dating from that 10% is statistically impossible. We know that women date males under 6 feet all the time, everywhere, every day. And second of all, these dudes act like they're dropping logic, when in reality, they're just spiraling off of their feelings. What's wild is that these males are taught that they're the rational ones, and we women are the ones ruled by emotion. So when they get an idea in their head, based on their feelings, they assume that it's fact just because they feel it is. But feelings aren't facts. Aren't they the ones who said facts don't care about your feelings? This whole narrative is one big cope. They repeat it to themselves and to each other like a mantra. Women only want the top 20% of men. The rest of us are doomed. It's unfair. It's a war. And then they go out and treat real women in the real world based on this delusion. So now we're sharing the same reality with people who are choosing to live in a parallel one, a made up one, and we're still the ones being harmed by it. But let's talk about this whole like tall men get chosen more thing. That's a patriarchal value. That's not some innate woman brain preference. Y'all built a society that says that taller equals stronger, equals more dominant, equals more valuable. That is your system of patriarchy. So women responding to the programming that you created, how is that on women? And let's be real, males play into this dynamic just as much as women do. A lot of males prefer shorter women actively. They seek them out so that they can feel bigger, stronger, and more masculine. Tall women will complain all the time that taller males don't want them because it bruises their ego. So let's not pretend that these pairing patterns are all about women rejecting males. These choices are happening on both sides. Anyway, so Old Bridge continues. There was also some 1930s style race science about how women as a separate species or class are biologically wired to do this, since tall males are coded in their brains as being better protectors or more likely to accumulate resources for them as a pair. So no amount of socialization or assimilation into new collective ideals as a society can prevent it. The only solution is violence and the elimination of women's rights so that they don't have the opportunity to do this. There was also some stuff about how nature made males bigger and stronger to defend themselves against this hypergamy. Sounded like pseudoscientific slop all the way through, but there is this crazy amount of detail. I feel like I'm watching a new ideology develop before my very eyes, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Between the rise of the far right, the manosphere, and young people being far more isolated and online these days, they'll have tens of millions of easy marks there for the taking. Powered by Chai says it's always let natural selection do its job with these tough guys until they're the ones being culled from the herd. OP writes, it's like there's a generation gap. Old boomers are more likely to uphold the natural order stuff, whereas Gen Z/Gen Alpha and the more online new generations are more likely to see the natural order as inherently evil and discriminatory to them, and so requires a radical solution. They're not all the way there yet, but it's moving there fast. Keep in mind, DT won a majority of males under 30 last year in the election. Same with the AfD in Germany this February. Nigel Farage's right-wing populist Reform Party is forecasted to win young people as a whole outright in the next UK election. And he's already talking about rolling back ABO rights similar to the US in recent years. Several polls have recently shown that for the first time in recorded history, young people are more conservative on issues of gender equality than their parents. This is happening everywhere, and I don't know what it's going to take to stop it. Fearless Future says this isn't new, sadly. That's like core incel belief. They typically use pseudoscience and or misrepresent scientific studies. OP writes, the scary thing is I see growing signs of this ideology more and more on every social media platform. Last year, one of the leaders of the far-right German party AfD started talking about how only 1 in 3 young German males are getting laid and suggested voting for them would resolve the problem. And they shot up from nowhere to second place in the election and won young males outright. First time a far-right party beat the Social Democrats there since 1933, and even back then, the far-right didn't win young males by as large a margin. It feels like in a few years, the whole mask will come off, and for the first time since the rise of the modern feminist movement in the 20th century, there will be a secular populist reason to actively oppose women's rights, one devoid of God or Christianity or the natural order.
That can capture wider popular imagination. Instead, it will be framed as an urgent present threat that must be fought against for the survival of our species.
I'm secretly terrified. Adventing Night says, the fact that they got to second place by running on that delusion in Germany is terrifying. I shudder to think what happens when someone in the US runs on that platform. Strange Cherry writes, so by their own science, they're being naturally selected out of the gene pool and it's inevitable they don't mate, but they want to go against nature and their own stance on gender essentialism when it suits them only. I can agree that it very much is meant that these losers go extinct. Hello Terasu writes, what's crazy to me is how they got to that conclusion. I have no clue. Like you said, only 10% fit that criteria. Clearly, we are not sleeping with only 10% of that population. Can't blame it on Hollywood, because it's a very public fact that they are not that 10% either. Yeah, it's really funny that these guys aren't blaming their personality or anything about themselves that they can actually change. Invasion of the Strange says, seriously, it's like they're blind. Look around at all the ugly, short, trashy, and or otherwise unpleasant people who manage to get laid, married, and have children, despite what cultural standards want us to believe. How bad do you have to be to not make that cut? So this person writes, males be like natural selection. Oh wait, not like that. Loki Finn says, but why don't they just take out all the tall males? It seems like that would take less time. And honestly, this question exposes everything because they won't. Like, these males will fantasize about violence against millions of women before they even entertain the idea of turning that violence onto the small percentage of males that they claim are hoarding all of the women. And why? Because they're not actually invested in disrupting the patriarchy. Their allegiance is to patriarchy. So they don't feel entitled to the lives or bodies of tall males, but they do feel entitled to the bodies of women. Even within their delusional logic, it would make more sense to go after the 10% of males that they see as competition, but they don't because those males represent power within the patriarchy. And the patriarchy teaches that you never punch up, you can only punch down. And so women, especially women who say no, are always the easiest target. So instead of questioning the system that told them that their worth was tied to height and dominance, instead of going like, maybe it's the hierarchy that's the problem, they decide to double down. They protect it and they uphold it, and then they turn that frustration onto women. Because it's not about winning love. It's about reasserting dominance and control and putting women back in their place. Coxiology says if they only dedicated this same energy to bettering themselves and their interpersonal relationship skills instead of so thoroughly explaining away their inability to get laid, they might actually realize just how desperate and off-putting their behavior and beliefs really are. And this comment was funny. Well, it kind of is. I mean, think of all those potential human beings being washed down the shower or smeared into a lotion-encrusted sock. How is that not a G-side? Buddha Divine says, weird how they equate them not getting laid to actual violence and unaliving of people. Absolutely wild. Liquor Bumper says, I've had it happen here in 2X. A male that felt that being told no to hang out with his creepy friends was the exact same as a woman being raped and unalived. Exact same. No difference. Proportionality, what? Buddha Divine says, it just shows their entitlement and their delusional mindset. I'm so glad I don't date anymore. REM says, well, that has two values. Makes them the victim, and it minimizes actual G-side. This is very true. Swindon says, it's their own fault, really. If they didn't want a G-side on their hands, they wouldn't be so damn short. I just don't understand why these males don't understand that. This person says, if you ask them if ugly women should feel entitled to sex with them specifically, then they get offended. OK Level says, and can't figure out how this behavior is why they can't get laid. Next Firefighter says, proof that these guys have literally never been outside. Recovering Left says, boggles my mind why these guys want a model, yet refuse to go outside and work on themselves and develop an interesting personality. Next Firefighter replies, some of them claim that no woman want them when a trip to Walmart would disprove that if we ignore personality issues. I've been to a Walmart in rural West Virginia, and there really is someone for everyone. Blue Whale says, this is actually something that I will tell guys who insist that they have no chance. Go to Walmart. It's a great sample of humanity, and it proves that people of all persuasions can be successful in finding love. And Next Firefighter says, everyone shopping there has roughly 20 kids, so you know they're getting laid. Dragon Slayer Barbie says, they believe that they should be gifted a subservient woman, just like their fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers, married just for being male. Never mind that those subservient women were often trapped into those scenarios, and thankfully women now don't have to worry about stupid shit like a bank account if we're unmarried. This person says, it's Twitter. It's mostly neo-smotsies and tankies since Elongated Muskrat bought the site. This person says, guys, I was at a neo-smotsie rally and they said some pretty racist stuff. Liquor Bomber says, cue shock and outrage. We versus us ads, yes, and most of them are bots. Please don't use the popularity of a thread anywhere on X, Facebook, or even here as a barometer of real-world enthusiasm for a given topic, especially the ones that are as nuts as this one. It almost certainly is not real, but the bots are trying to get you to believe it's real. And thank goodness for this person. Acceptable Chef says, I think it's important to realize it's not only extremists and not only online. The book Men Who Hate Women dispels this idea. It's a lot more males than we realize, and a shocking number with actual power. This person says, pretty sure that G-side against males isn't actually possible. Genders are not races. Reduce the numbers and they'll come back in the next generation. Wipe out one and there'll be no next generation. Androgyny says, so I agree with your point that genocide against males for being males is not a thing. However, if a group of people intentionally target the males and boys of another group of people, a racial, ethnic, national, religious, etc. group of people, that would be an act of G-side because it would in fact reduce the numbers of births, thereby resulting in the destruction of a people in part, if not in whole. They go on to write, to me, the reasons males aren't getting effed as much is not G-sidal act by women, LMAO, are that 1, women are not en masse organizing state power to create conditions required for all of us to go on a SMEX strike. So there is no infrastructure set up to allow for women and girls to force celibacy on males. No general widespread belief in the destruction of males and boys as a group amongst anyone, let alone women, which would require actual proper state power to be wielded by the G-sidal man haters. And 2, no one deserves SMEX. Even if people having SMEX is necessary for the continuation of people in general, the alternative is forcible SMEX, aka grape. So, like, this is basically too ridiculous to even entertain, but whatever, LMAO. Now, if a group is being systemically targeted for their gender and there are conditions to allow for the reduction of numbers of that gendered group, it would be potentially genocidal in nature. But again, that requires real organization and violence and intent on the part of those with power to do so. So no, there's no G-side against males happening here, but you can make a very real argument for femicide because globally and historically, males have harmed women at staggering rates. In countries like India and China, sex-selective ABOs led to a massive surplus of males simply because girls were seen as less valuable. In courts, crimes against women are routinely dismissed or met with lighter sentencing. Across cultures, women live with the threat of male violence as a part of our daily life. And let's not forget the crime of passion category that was invented specifically to explain and excuse away why males unalive women when they lose control. But women aren't organizing to eliminate males. Women are just trying to survive males. So to turn around and claim that that's G-side against you because you're not getting laid is not only delusional, it's so disrespectful to actual victims of systemic violence. You're not being erased, you're being ignored, and sometimes that's the most dangerous thing to a male who believes he's owed something. So this person says it's just easier to blame a lack of height, which can't be controlled, than blame their own misogyny, shitty behavior, and general assholishness, which can be controlled and changed very much. Possible way says my son is far away from 6 foot and still has several female friends wanting more than a friendship because he sees and treats them as friends and not possible objects to sleep with. Okay Level says not allowing any dude to F you and your life up is G-side. Weevil Season says, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but the whole only guys over 6 foot are getting laid is baffling. My sons are 19 and 20, and obviously I know a bunch of their male friends as well. Height has almost nothing to do with it if they and their friends have girlfriends. The most popular kid in high school in one of my son's grades was 5'7". The majority of my son's friends are shorter than 6 foot, and they all have had girlfriends. Both my sons have a couple of friends who are actually short, 5'5"-ish, and they all have girlfriends currently. That whole height thing is just a terminally online talking point for young males who have poisonous personalities, and women avoid them like the plague. Clean Tax says drawing a parallel between preferences and actual massive crimes is another level of mental gymnastics, and yet they say that males are more logical than women. Hating us for standards has been normalized to an ugly extent of open misogyny. Now they are okaying G-side. I need a break from this world. Critical Coconut says, what is with this freaking timeline? Like, imagine our ancestors saw this BS. We've evolved too. So, Mythological Riddle is bringing real statistics. 14.5% of males in the US are over 6 feet tall. 37% of males in the US have had SMEX in the last year. Even if every last male over 6 foot tall in the US was having SMEX, that means another 22.5% of the male population, aka those under 6 foot tall, also had SMEX. For every one tall dude having SMEX, another 1.5 not tall dudes were having SMEX. These males are lying. Case in point. Not Your Stranger says, men are equating celibacy with schmurder. Bo the Kangaroo says, sounds like white replacement theory with some slightly altered words. Unfortunately, it's probably most of the same unfuckable idiots that also fall for this. This person says, that is male entitlement. Small Edge says, not male entitlement, incel entitlement. Jupiter in the Sky says, not effing someone is not G-side because no one is entitled to SMEX. Males, regardless of height, looks, or any of the concerns of incels, are not entitled to using other humans' bodies for any reasons. Just like not giving a person a kidney is not me committing a murder. The 13 Kitten says Volodymyr Zelensky is 5'7", and probably half of the women in America would invite him home. It's definitely not about height. And Hello Lo-Fi Panda says, I like my men 6 feet, 6 feet under. And I'll end it off here. This person says, it's gross. As a guy, I just don't see how other males can say with a straight face that there isn't rampant sexism and misogyny in our culture, especially on the public internet. Saw some guy on a random Instagram post doing the old equal rights, equal lefts joke about hitting women because of equality. I just said gross, grow up, or whatever. His response is that people are just too sensitive. These people have rocks in their heads. Any justification for their insane views and attitude. I just told him that people cover their drinks around him. What can you do? Impenetrable stupidity, ignorance, and hate. It's sad. Apart from call it out when I see it and be the change and all that, it's so hard to make a dent, and often you just have to avoid these people. And they're just gathering physically or electronically in spaces with like minds, so I have ostracized many males in my life who were just assholes and wouldn't listen. They don't go away, though. I just don't have them around, and women still have to deal with them. The podcast brosphere has a lot to answer for. There's such a huge wave of males with these attitudes, it's like a tsunami. Sorry, that would have been a terrible day to have eyes. WTF. I feel like this comment is why it's so important that males who want to be in the space of like or who claim to be allies talk to other men. Like there are so many podcast bros that have been brainwashing males on the other side of this. So it is up to males if you want to help. It is up to males to talk to men, especially like the younger men, and help them to see the way because women can't do it. Within a patriarchy, males don't respect the voices of women in general. So it is up to you. We're counting on you not to just say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. What a terrible day to have eyes." You need to talk to your fellow men. You need to talk to them. Don't just stay in women's spaces trying to commiserate with the women. You need to go out and talk to the men. So thanks so much for watching up until this point. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the notification bell so that you never miss an update or a new video. And for those of y'all who want to join in this conversation, please make sure to leave your comments in the comment section below. We love to hear from you. We read more comments than we respond to, I have to admit, but we always love hearing what you guys have to add to these discussions. Thanks so much. We'll see you down in the comments and in the next video.